My name is Vina, aka Miss WOCReader, and welcome back to my channel. I'm serving a little pink moment today, although I feel like this top is more like peachy pink. It's looking a little bit lighter on camera, at least the way I see it. And lips are kind of bright, but I think they look cute. I'm loving this eye look. And I was gonna do my nails, but I ran out of time. We are now halfway through the month, which is crazy to me because I feel like February is breezing on by, whereas January was much slower. I'm in a good mood because now I get to officially work 3 days from home, 2 days in office, so I feel like I'm just going to get a lot more work done. By work, I mean like the things that I want to do outside of work, like writing. I have been back in editing mode and loving it. I've been feeling really inspired with my work again now, especially with everything I've been reading. Like I am just like now more than ever, I need to get on top of things because, as I mentioned previously, my goal is to query my book this year. So I've been back in editing mode. I'm still trying to read all the things, and I haven't read as much as I read this time in January, but we're trucking along. So let's get into everything that I've read so far this month. I read Frenemy Fix Up by Yara St. John. This was one that has been sitting on my shelf for a couple of years that I needed to get to. And I will say, I didn't love this one. I thought I was going to enjoy it. I think it started out okay. But it was one of those situations where you have the people who don't really like each other, but they end up as friends with benefits. And then it ends up feeling more like sex than romance. Like some of the romance books that I've been having a problem with lately, it's because the romance aspect is missing and it's just like two people hooking up who decide to declare their love for each other. There was a lot of deep things that this book touched upon briefly, like losing a child through miscarriage and wanting children in the future but it not happening for you, and feeling a little bit envious of your friends who it is happening for. And I feel like we could have discussed that in more detail as a couple, and we did not. In this book as well, our MMC, he is dealing with health struggles. His dad died due to his health issues. He's starting to experience issues with his heart, and so he has to make a decision to eat healthy and work out more and stuff, and that's how he ends up joining this yoga class, and then they just become like fuck buddies. Again, he had a lot of hang-ups about who he should be with and like what the right image looks like, and at the end of the day I feel like these two just were not compatible long term. It almost felt like we were settling and I didn't feel like he had to grovel enough for her affection. I finally finished Stuck in the Country with You by Zuri Day, and I will say it was slower in the first half. Then the second half it really picked up and I was really digging it. I enjoyed a lot of the family drama. I'm just a sucker for family drama in a romance. Like I love when I get these stories, especially in Black romance, where the family is heavily involved. Not like a they're all up in the relationship type of way, but in a they're in the day-to-day or at least month-to-month lives of the characters, and we see how that affects them. So in this one, Genesis inherits her uncle's farm, and her cousins are very upset because like those are his kids. They should have inherited the farm in their eyes. Why is this girl getting the farm? So they're kind of battling it out with her there over the farm. And we have Jackson, who is a neighbor but was also a rival to her brother in school. So there's a little bit of animosity there. Like she heard that back in the day Jackson made a bet to sleep with her and ended up doing it. So at first like she's not happy to see him, but they slowly like warm up to each other, especially as he's helping her around the farm because she's a city girl. She doesn't know nothing about that farm life. There's just a lot of little things that she is learning. And he spent a lot of time with her uncle towards the end, so he's able to help her with that. Like I said, the drama of her family fighting back and forth with her was just so good. And then just their ideas, like one of the things they wanted to do was establish together a tiny house community that they could rent out for different people. I thought that was pretty cool. And so overall, like, I ended up really enjoying it. It definitely had the small town, small farm feels. I read An Arcane Inheritance by Camilla Cole. Check out my written review if you have not yet. I will link that in the bio. Or, not the bio, the description box. I will link it in the description box down below. But this is described as a dark academia. And one thing I've noticed about dark academia is there is really like nothing truly defining what dark academia is, because it can be fantasy, or it can be thriller, or it can be mystery, and everybody seems to have a different interpretation of it. There are a lot of books that are just private school books that end up getting like kind of grouped together with the dark academia, but there's nothing dark about them. This particular book, I don't really consider it dark academia, even though some dark things were happening at the school. We didn't focus much on the academic aspect, although there's a lot of dark academia books that aren't really focusing on academics either. And you'd think with academia in the name, that would be more of a factor. Like, ideally, I am looking for an adult dark academia where they go to class, where they're heavily involved with campus, where we actually see dark things happening here. There were things happening under the surface, but the way that this book was paced, you don't really get to see the dark things happening. We hear about them later, and it's mostly rushed towards the end. And here we're following Ellery. She is a Jamaican immigrant who is going to this illustrious Ivy League school. Now, this is considered one of like the final Ivy Leagues. Like, it was established much later on than the other Ivy Leagues, and there's a very just contrived reason that really ended up not even still making sense for why that happened. But she's been there for about 3 weeks at the beginning of the book. She's having weird hallucinations. She feels like something's lying below the surface, and she finds out that the school was originally started by the founders to be a magic school, and then the magic school didn't work out, so they ended up becoming just like an Ivy League school. Again, it wasn't really pieced together well, and even though she's trying to figure out what's going on at the school, not really. Like, we'll go chapters on end without her even mentioning it, and then she just brings up the same stuff that we already knew. And she is obsessed with this guy named Hudson Graves, and yes, she calls him Hudson Graves majority of the time, which was very weird to me because it's not like there was any other Hudson in this book, so why did we need to call him by his full name so often? Especially in her mind. Like, that was just so unnecessary. Her obsession with him was weird. It starts out with this academic rivalry, which doesn't make any sense because this is college. There's no need to have an academic rivalry. She even, like, somebody even tells her on page 1 point, there's no need to have an academic rivalry. Like, this is not high school where you're competing to be valedictorian. And they only share one class together. Like, I don't even believe they're the same major. He's a senior. She's a freshman who happens to be 21 because she ended up getting this scholarship, like, years later than she should have. It was very confusing because there's just a lot of stuff that she doesn't remember and she's not sure why, and she's kind of going through this book feeling somewhat cloudy, trying to figure out what's going on, but like I said, not really. She spends a lot of time complaining about the pressures that are placed upon her by her Jamaican parents who are still in Jamaica to just, be a good student and do well, which I don't feel like is a hard ask. Like, people complain about the pressures that Caribbean parents put on their kids to exceed in academics, and some do to an extent, but I really did not see too much of it here because she never talks to them on page. So I'm being told that they're putting all this pressure on her, but we never actually see them on page to see them applying this pressure. And it's not inherently a bad thing for your parents to want you to succeed and do better. Like, I'm speaking as somebody who is also the child of immigrant parents, and I feel like my parents were pretty fair. They wanted us to do decently in school, but like, it wasn't like you have to be the best of the best, but they still wanted us to do better than them because that's the whole purpose of coming here to this country. As far as her roots in Jamaica, there was some patois in this book, but it didn't read in a way that people actually speak patois, if that makes sense. Like, I was reading it, I'm like, no. And also, what I found really weird is at one point the aunt was speaking it, and then it said, and she switched back to English. Patois is English. It's an English-based Creole. So there's no she switched back to English. She's just speaking a different variant of English. Like, I think she meant she went back to standard English, but even so, like, that was just so unnecessary. And again, the patois was reading like somebody who doesn't actually speak patois, if that makes sense. And I feel like it was only sprinkled in to remind us that Ellery is Jamaican. I think that for as much as we kept being reminded that she was Jamaican, what was weird to me was she never sought out other Jamaican people. So on an Ivy League campus, realistically, you would have Caribbean immigrants, if not Caribbean American students, who she'd be able to identify. They are a minority, but they still have a presence. I have a cousin whose daughter goes to Yale, and her daughter is Trinidadian American. She was able to find her people on the campus. Like, if you want to seek out your people, you will be able to find them at a PWI. It doesn't have to be a solely isolating experience. Ellery never seeks out her people. She hangs around privileged white people and like a sprinkling of privileged Asian people and complains about how she's not wealthy. Well, you didn't choose to seek out people who look like you. Even Hudson, he's biracial, which the book doesn't actually really address his biracialness. Like, even though it does mention his dad is white and is from a legacy family. And at one point, Ellery does mention that Hudson is black, just not black like her. But even that part is just not fully explored with the depth it needs to, because he's, for the most part, navigating this world as if he were white. And I don't know if it's because initially when the author was drafting the story, he was white and she decided to make that change later. But that wasn't really set up well. There's this random hookup in here with this white side character that just felt extra unnecessary. It literally added nothing to the story whatsoever. And then even worse, it was almost sold to us like as if this character had deep feelings for her, and they went on 2 dates. There was no deep feelings there. So like, her telling me that he was in love with her didn't make any sense. And again, like, this was being marketed as if it was black romance. So the fact that she spends a good chunk of her time with this white guy, it didn't vibe. I feel like as heavily as it was marketed for the romance had no depth. We didn't really see them together on page, and it felt unearned. And then even where we got to at the end, it was unsatisfying. But by the time the pacing lined up where we started getting reveals and action started happening, it was far too late in the book. I'm talking about like after the 75% mark is when stuff finally started really actually moving. And by then it was just like some irritating writing decisions that like left you just underwhelmed. The ideas were here, but at the same time, the ideas were just different things pulled from much better written books. So if you are looking for a hard-hitting, like dark academia book that really explores what it means to be a Black person navigating these schools, this one wasn't it. Like there's just so many better books out there you can read about somebody navigating white spaces. So those are the things that I like read already for the month. There's a couple of things that I'm currently reading. Y'all are tired of seeing me with this book, but I am still reading Soul of the Stone. I'm halfway through. My goal is to actually sit down and have this finished like by next week. I'm trying to set a goal of mid next week to finish this, because like I could honestly start doing some reading of this tonight and make some good headway, but I think I want to do some writing tonight. I just got The Boyfriend Launcher by Rachel Garrett in the mail. I am going to be doing a featured post for Bookstagram for this, so I want to get started with this today. And look how cute it is! This is going to make a great read this weekend. I started chapter 1 of A Day of Breath, and I'm intrigued so far. Like, I want to really dive into this one before the month ends. This one, I don't have the cover on it, but it is The Reaper. I already said I want to read The Reaper in its entirety by the end of February, and we are halfway through the month, so this is going to be a priority book this weekend too. So those are the books that I read and I'm currently reading. What are you currently reading? And if you like this video, make sure and hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!